Well, officially welcome. Good to have you all in the Purple group as we tonight discuss our next book, How to Give Up Plastic by Will McCallum. Simple Steps to Living Consciously on Our Blue Planet. So let me start with a prayer, and then we'll dig in to the conversation. God, thank you for the wisdom that we read from this book and from the community tonight as we hear from one another and ask exactly how we might live out some of these principles in our lives, in our walk of faith, and even in our church. God, we thank you for the chance to share these ideas tonight and ask for your wisdom to be given to each of us in many ways. In your name we pray. Amen. Well, okay, so this is my plan for tonight. I thought what I would do is, because sometimes we read these books and there's a super clear religious theological overtones, and this doesn't, right? I mean, this is super practical, not a lot of ideology, not a lot of theology. And so my thought is, let's do it this way. Let's kind of bring about our own kind of faith conversation in the midst of this. And so I'm going to cheat and use, there is a book that I used in seminary called The 4 Pages of the Sermon. And it talks about that a sermon has 4 different pages, 4 different kind of rhetorical movements. The first is to talk about the bad news in the world, and then the bad news in the text in the Bible, then the good news in the text and the good news in the world. And so I'm going to use that as kind of our guide and say, all right, so in this book, what's the bad news? We're going to start there. We'll talk about that for a few minutes. And then say, well, what's the bad news? How does that bad news relate to our walk of faith? How does it connect to the church? How does it connect to Scripture, right? Move from this book to the book. And then start to add kind of the next step then. Okay, well, what's the good news then? What's the good news and how does it answer this bad news? Where is gospel when it comes to issues like this? And then come back around to the question of, well, where's the good news in this book? What does McCallum say about things that we can do and how we can be helpful? So let's use that as kind of our guide these next several minutes. Let's start then with some bad news, right? I mean, there's some depressing stats and some depressing stuff in this book. So how did you all read this and what bad news did you hear in it?
Giving up plastic is probably like giving up your phone or your computer. That's going to be tough. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, how the oceans are filling up with it. And I remember going out to the prayer, where we used to take Benjamin all the time out there at Prairie Park. And they had a turtle that had plastic all wrapped around it, and then I've seen other things that have the, like the 6-pack of pop, plastic rings, all entangled in animals. And that's not a good thing.
Right. And some of the stories he tells about the big blobs of plastic, on beaches and in the oceans, and see if I can find the line in there that basically like 80% of plastic from the oceans doesn't start there. It starts on land, and so it goes through our waterways. It goes through our non-recycled disposal process and ends up blown into the oceans, and then it gathers there where the turtles and the fish and so on and so forth are impacted.
I guess what I didn't understand is how does that all get to the ocean? Because we try to recycle everything that we possibly can. And I thought that was buried or burned. So I was a little confused of how all that gets to the, is it what trash that people leave around, or is it the stuff we recycle?
So, no, my sense is that it's mostly the stuff that's not recycled. I'm looking for that number too. I'm pretty sure he said that only 50% of our plastics get recycled. So the McFeeder family is probably doing a lot better than the average, right? It sounds like. But that, it feels like, yeah, let's see. No, and I can't find that number, but yeah, I'm pretty sure it's about, well, here's one number, less than half of the 13 billion plastic bottles that British people throw away every year are recycled, right? And so you've got a small, yeah, here it is, less than half of the 35 million plastic bottles that they throw away every day. So if you can imagine that much plastic. And so that's where a lot of it goes. Yeah, my understanding is that that the waste, what's he called, the kind of the waste industry, even the recycling industry, there is a process for when we recycle, which is not ideal. It's not perfect, but it really helps cut down those numbers. But then there's still, 50%. There's still a ton left. Oh, and then here on page 37, that is another answer to your question, Marcia. Roughly a third of plastic in the ocean comes from microfibers, which can be released when washing our clothes. Do you remember that stuff about textile industry and the clothes? Anybody have a good kind of summary of that bad news?
Yeah, I didn't quite understand that though. Is it just synthetic fibers, or is it all of our clothes?
Let's see. So,
Dan stuff about fibers, though. Most of the clothes we wear are synthetic. The only thing that's natural is wool.
yeah,
Cotton and wool. That's it. Everything else is man-made.
yeah, there on page 26, he starts talking about some of that microplastics. And so some of the microbeads, some of the different kind of parts that are in our textiles. Let's see. How does plastic into the environment? Yeah, here it is. Microfibers. This is on 36. Microfibers, which can be released through washing our clothes, account for roughly a third of plastic in the ocean. And so you're talking about more or less anything that's, we look at these fleece sweaters and sweatshirts and stuff, and that's basically plastic. And so when we wash those things, they get just enough kind of sloughed off that is kind of turned into plastic waste.
Wonder how they gather together, and do they accumulate and glob up things together, because they look so small. And
Yeah,
you clean out your dryer, the dust thingy, that's probably what that is. And you throw that dust away from the dryer, Brent.
Yeah, and it did say somewhere in there that that those microplastics are so small that the dryer vent doesn't catch them. So it goes through the dryer vents, and basically gets sloughed off even in the washer. And so it gets into our wash system or water system. It gets into our dryer vent or whatever, into the air in different ways. And so it for all these different ways, these tiny little plastics slowly make it into our water supply, waste water supply, which eventually, of course, make it into the ocean. Let's see if I can find any more, because that's the one that really surprised and shocked me. There's a lot of bad news in there about plastic bags. That wasn't a huge surprise. About plastic bottles, including the little bitty, what's it called, the sachets, the little bitty plastic bottles. How much of that is everywhere? But it was the really the stuff in the clothes that got me. Oh, I remember where he talks about that. He talks about that in the. There's a whole chapter, doesn't he have, on
I've got
the.
a reference to page 81, something about when you're cleaning out the bedroom, clothes shed every time we wear them, wash them or throw away.
It is, yeah, 85. It comes to a surprise to most people, including me, that the clothes they wear are one of the greatest sources of plastic in the ocean. Minuscule strands of clothing, normally made of nylon or polyester and much finer than human hair, are shed from our clothes every time we wear them, wash them, and of course, when we throw them away. The rise of fast fashion means that a cheap and easy to use material, polyester, makes up 60% of the clothing material we wear, with an estimated 61 million tons of synthetic fibers being manufactured in 2016, which was your point, Dell. All this stuff that, unless we're wearing a 100% wool sweater or 100% cotton, there's just all this, microplastic possibility. Oh yeah, they're on 87. A fleece jacket could be responsible for releasing as many as 250,000 microfibers.
I guess you can't recycle those clothes. Can you? Plastic, the nylon, rayon,
Right.
all artificial fibers.
Yep. Yep. That's yeah, and we'll get to that when we come around to the good news about how you can deal with that. But there's plenty of bad news in terms of how those clothes really impact our oceans and just kind of our world in general, right? We see all these plastic in so many different ways.
Matt, we are a plastic world.
Yeah, that's right.
We are a plastic world. We don't want people, majority are not going to give up their plastic water bottles. I'm looking around right now and I just ate some yogurt in a plastic cup. They don't come in anything but plastic. I look around at toys. You cannot give my dog something in wood. They have to have hard plastic. So we're not going to give it up.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's it. And I think that's a great summary of the bad news still. And Chuck kind of started there, right? In terms of it's everywhere, right? There's so much of it in our world, and it's the stuff that we use all the time. So let me pivot a little bit and ask the question. So what does that have to do with our faith? What does plastic have to do with Jesus? What does any of this have to do with kind of the way we think about our faith and the way that we think about our walk with Christ?
I don't think Jesus used plastic.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Genesis,
So I don't think that was an issue with him.
If we're going to be Christian, then we shouldn't use plastic either. Is that what you're saying, Del?
Probably. Somebody made a lot of money inventing plastic.
That's right. That's right.
in Genesis, God told us to take care of the earth.
Right.
That's pretty old command.
Yeah, what is it? Genesis 2, right? I mean, it's the first commandment, really, that God gives humanity. God gives Adam to care and tend, take care of the earth, and it just feels like that's a pretty clear commandment for us too. So yeah, other thoughts. What's Scripture say about it? What's our walk of faith have to do with this kind of proliferation of plastic in our lives?
For me, no matter what anybody else does, I still recycle. I use glass. I don't use plastic water bottles. So that's my part of trying to change. It's just going to be, we like the convenience, period,
Right. Yeah, that's right. And I think that kind We talked about this a little bit. It's been a few months ago now, and we talked about this connection of faith and climate change. And this guy that was trying to get us to think differently about climate change, Marshall, I think was his name. He's talking about how faith communities seem more ready for something like this, right? Because they're used to telling their faith participants, right? Faith community participants that they're going to have to give some things up, right? I mean, we live under the authority of somebody who said, "Take up your cross," and so there is something that says, all right, if anybody can give this stuff up, then maybe it's going to be people of faith. But that doesn't make it easy, does it?
Well, we'll do it tomorrow. But if you evangelize your faith in Christ, maybe we need to evangelize the recycling a little more. Just if start with ourselves, of course. You have to start at home.
Right.
I think that's part of the book, wasn't it? Cleaning up your house, Marcia.
Live by example.
Yeah.
Yeah, and evangelize is an interesting word, Chuck, because he does definitely start moving toward, that it's both and. You start with yourself, you start with your own, like you said, you go through your house and all these different pieces, but then you share it too. I think if it becomes more of a cultural expectation, then like I think, for example, about you go to a restaurant and there's a whole bunch of people and okay, we'll all get to-go cups, we'll all get straws, we'll all use plastic silverware or whatever. He makes the argument, if one person says, well, I'm not going to do that, my faith tells me that I want to care and tend for the earth, and so I'm not going to put any more plastic if I can help it. Then maybe the other person at the restaurant sees you do that, and maybe another person. And so it's an interesting word you use to talk about evangelism, as in sharing good news, including the good news about our commandment to care for the earth. What else? What other ways we're kind of making the shift now from bad news in the walk of faith to the good news in the walk of faith? How does our faith kind of give us potential and possibility to make some of these changes?
Well, I think we really do try to recycle everything. Now, I do use plastic straws, but Chuck can attest to the fact that I use them over and over and over.
I even wash them.
Weren't they
That's
trying to
pretty
get
hard
rid of
to do.
plastic straws? Wasn't that one of the things they were banning now, the restaurants?
Yeah. But most of the restaurants and everything now, you go out, except the very fancy ones, they use plastic plates.
How about
And,
the communion cups? Those are plastic.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, that is, obviously this book was written before COVID, but really COVID just kind of, I think, turned us the wrong direction on plastic because so much of what it takes to be safe and individually wrapped and separated and not communal and not shared means plastic.
And a lot of the little plastic wrapping stuff, local recycle doesn't take it.
That's right.
I think that's too bad because there are lots of plastic wrap. It should be recycled, but you can't put it in with the newspaper. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Well, it has to do with you need the
Well,
And-
I don't know if it's about the machines or not, but I know like medicine bottles and things like that, unless they're over 2 inches, they don't want you to recycle those. So I do put those in the trash because they tell you not to recycle them.
Right.
Because they're
That's just-
machines, I think.
That's the thing about the machine, the sizes. They say that with bottle caps. They say that with, like you said, medicine caps, you know, so metal bottle caps or plastic bottle caps. And then, of course, Del, you brought it up, these communion cups that we've been doing, right? And so in a way to be safe from COVID, we've gone to these safer communion cups, but they're not 2 inches. I mean, they would just, we throw a bunch of those at the machine and it'd clog it up in a heartbeat. Which, you know, it's not a microfiber, but it's a bunch. I mean, can you imagine where those are going? That's just a incredible, like I said, backward step when COVID hit us about how do we be safe and how do we be individually wrapped without plastic?
Well, what alternative is there besides that? You can't go around and give everybody a drink out of the same cup, because then you might be spreading COVID or something else. But I think for me is if you're going to use plastic, then make it more than one use. Find something else to do with it. Just like those things that come off the newspapers, people use those to go out walking their dogs and use them for doggy bags. I know lots of people do that. You know, I have paper online, so I don't even mess with the plastic.
Yeah, yeah.
That kind of plastic goes into the landfill, and I don't know how long it lasts in the landfill.
Right.
There's evidence of something that lasts for many, many years in the landfill. Now they are starting to make plastics that disintegrate more quickly. And maybe in the future, we'll have less plastic that lasts forever.
Yeah.
Make something out of the plastic. I mean, there are beautiful rugs made out of plastic bags. And they're finding out that melting down plastic on some things, it can be used for fuel. So you can do a lot of stuff that people would just, instead of thinking, oh, I can't use the plastic, well, use the plastic, but let's recycle it into something else that we can use instead of getting rid of it in the oceans and the landfills.
I'm with you. I've tried to figure out some kind of creative way to reuse those communion cups. I have no idea how we would use those again. Kristen.
Make a lamp with holiday lights. Remember how they used to do the plastic cups years ago and make the lamps with the holiday lights? Well, maybe the communion cups could be done with that way.
Yeah, and again, it really is this frustrating thing about, you know, the safest thing to do is if somebody drinks from it, throw it away. But is that the best thing in the long run?
I wonder if those plastic communion cups are the kind of plastic that is recyclable. I would guess that it probably is. They'll just be remelted down and repurposed for something.
Yeah, I mean, we could make a call to the city to double check, but I think that's Marcia's problem, right? That they're too small, that they just aren't going to be big enough. That's what we looked up and found, that it is small enough that it is recyclable, yes, but it's
Well,
small
the
enough.
manufacturer should be the one that wants to recollect that. It should be, if it's possible, perhaps that, you know, everything works on profit basis in the United States.
Right.
And if you could make the recycling of your savings a profitable thing, people, you know, if you make it costly for us, we're less likely to waste it if it costs us money. And we really recognize the cost. You know, we used to have these glass bottles, milk bottles, you had to turn them in, you get a dime or a nickel or something.
Yeah, he talks about that too. Remember, he talks about in some countries, I think in Europe, they've done a lot of plastic buyback campaigns. And those campaigns, those plastic bottle buybacks really make a difference. Something like 90% of the bottles get returned because they could, get a nickel for them.
Many years ago, when I was doing a lot of jogging and stuff every morning, I would pick up cans. There was a place in North Lawrence that would pay 10 cents a pound for aluminum cans. And I would pick those up and once a month or so take them, and I got coffee money, that's my extra
right,
coffee money, just for the heck of it.
Yeah.
And I thought I was doing a good
Add money
job.
for our grandkids.
Yeah, and so so he does go that direction too. He says that some of these things aren't simply about me and mine. The people who want to recycle, the people who read these books and want to change their hearts and their minds and their lives and even their faith walk decisions aren't going to be enough. He says it really is going to take some political pressure or public speaking out so that larger institutions, whether it's political or, like you say, Chuck, companies and kind of the corporate structure, or whether it's federal or statewide or local municipal, that it's going to take some of those decisions on a wider scale. So what about that? I mean, is that something that you feel like is an appropriate piece of this, or do you feel like, I'm fine, me and mine, but I don't know about trying to force other people to have my thought process.
Well, I hate to play a plastic tax, but we may have to play a plastic tax someday.
I've been in plenty of communities that you have to buy plastic bags at the grocery store. Have y'all seen that?
Heard about it.
Went to let's see, Breckenridge, Colorado this summer and saw it. Chicago, when I was in Chicago, they had and maybe even like plastic bottle tax. I think you have to pay more if you're going to get like a bottle of Gatorade or something like that. So yeah, that's possible. What do you think? Is that something that as part of our faith we should be helping out, kind of help pushing those kind of campaigns?
I think the best thing that would be these plastic bottle manufacturers offering cents back for every bottle, like a penny or something. A lot of kids would go and collect every single bottle like they do aluminum cans. I think, that would be my thing, is to go after these manufacturers and say, offer incentives to get these bottles back, to recycle them, because you can reuse them once they're cleaned or melted down or whatever. You can reuse them.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But I think it's going to come down. People are on a reward system. They want to be rewarded, just like a lot of the grocery stores. You bring your plastic bags back in, and a lot of times they'll give you 10 cents off or whatever. So they're, in that way, they're trying to get those plastic bags back that people they don't want. So instead of throwing away, I take my plastic bags back to the store, and there's a big old bin, and you just dump them in.
Yeah, we do that too. I collect them and then usually have Chuck deliver them.
But I use my cloth bags anyway. I hardly ever use a plastic bag for anything.
I don't know if the Sprouts are still doing it, but if you use one of their cloth bags, you always got 15 cents off of whatever it is you were buying.
Yeah. Well, I take my
can-
bags into Sprouts, so I don't use, or I use paper, but I don't use plastic bags.
Everybody use paper, then you're destroying the forest.
Yep, that's true. That's true. Better stay away from the paper. Okay, we can't use plastic. We can't use paper. We can't do the cans.
I hate to tell you, but all those reusable bags, none of those, they're all polyester, right? And so they're all gonna have some kind of
Yep.
And I wonder how clean they are.
Yeah, I mean,
Because
any
they'll have-
way you see.
That's right. And so, I think we don't want to beat ourselves up. I think this is another kind of a faith statement as well. I mean, I think we give ourselves some grace here. I mean, I think we understand that we're not going to be perfect about this. In the same way that, we're not perfect in every commandment in Scripture. We do our best, and then we offer ourselves some grace. But yeah, I think you guys are right on to it, asking those kind of questions about how do we, what are the R's? They kind of updated the R's. Instead of 3 R's, there's 4 R's. Refuse, and so he talks about if you see plastic or plastic straw or plastic bag or if you have an option to say I don't want that, then say I'm going to refuse it. Same with if you a lot of coffee places, you go get your cup of coffee, you can start to bring in your own cup and say I'll fill this instead of taking the plastic cup. Refuse and then reduce. I mean, just kind of rethink about how do we have less, fewer plastic things that we get. Buy less clothes, wash less often, wash in cold more often. Those are some of the ways that we can kind of reduce the way that plastic comes from us. Reuse, right? Which is kind of what you all are talking about, the reused grocery bags, reusing, coffee cups again. Some of the ways that we, instead of water bottles, water bottles are the worst in terms of super convenient. Even when we had this, the popsicle stand, right? We were giving out water, and it's safer and it's more convenient to give out water bottles. But can we reduce the number of bottles that we use and use reusable water bottles instead? And then of course recycle, right? Recycle as much as we can, as often as we can. So I don't know. What do y'all think of the 4 R's? How are you doing on those?
Well, we shop at Aldi's and we keep a box in our trunk. And so as she puts the stuff in the basket, we wheel the basket out and put it in our box in the trunk.
Yep.
So we don't use the tote bags or we use the box we have in our trunk.
That's a good way to do it.
I
Yeah.
use my tote bags. I have special tote bags. I just take them everywhere with me. And I reuse them though. They're not in the garbage. They are good, sturdy, square box bags that fold down.
Yeah, we have those too.
Yeah, that's usually what I take to Aldi is we have 2 or 3 big, huge bags full of those reusable bags, and we always stick, a big pile of them underneath the cart there at Aldi, and then fill up the cart, and then fill it up and use all of those. We've used some of the youth group. Remember a couple years ago, the Earthworks partnered with them and made some reusable t-shirt bags. Did you guys get any of those?
Don't remember.
I
Well-
remember them doing it, but I don't know if I ever saw any finished ones or not. I know plastic bags.
There's a ton sitting around somewhere. We can get you some if you want them, because it comes from all these different t-shirts that they, for years and years and years, they've done all these youth group, and they just would hang on to these t-shirts and thought, let's reuse them. And so it's another way to do that, which does it again, right? Not only is it reusable, I'm not using a plastic bag, but it's reusing another thing so that instead of throwing away that t-shirt, you're using it for something else.
Now, I misunderstood. I know that David did something with the plastic bags. She weaved them some way. Did they make rugs or something for the homeless or something?
You can make rugs or anything with plastic bags. I'm thinking, why can't you weave plastic bags for the bags? Do you actually take in the grocery stores. You can
Yeah.
weaving them. It's like crossing like basket stitch.
No, you're absolutely right, Marcia. A couple of years ago, they did just that, like you're saying, Dell, and they wove these kind of mats that folks would use, and they would give them out at the homeless shelter. Folks that weren't sure where they were going to sleep. You know, this is a pretty lightweight extra mat that they could lay down on, and whether it's, you know, out and about or whether it was in the shelter itself. And so the youth had just an evening where they just took a ton of plastic, because we collected a bunch of them, because everybody had in their own house a bunch of plastic bags that they've been saving up, and used a lot of those to you know, to reuse. So it's both and, right? How do we say no, refuse those plastic bags in the first place, and then when we do, because you know, we get a handful here and there, how do we reuse them? So refuse and reuse. The food pantry is another one. Whenever we get a handful of plastic bags, we'll bring them into the food pantry, so Wendy can hand those out to folks. It just makes it easier to do that.
I was wondering what happens to those after we use them. They take them home, their food, but then do they eventually end up in the landfill, or since the local recycle won't take those plastic bags in the recycle?
Yeah, that's a good
Which
question.
again, they need to figure out how the local recyclers, you know, used to at Walmart, they had the recycle place and you could take those plastic bags. They had all the different kinds of plastic.
I used to use the recycle out at Walmart, and I thought it was better than our city system.
What's for us?
'Cause I could recycle everything out there.
So, so do we need to do a letter writing campaign to some of these companies to tell them to start a buyback program, or to do some plastic bag recycling?
Was it Israel, Marshall, where we heard that the plastic bags were reduced? They fall apart after a long period of
Yeah,
time.
I mean, I really thought those would go someplace, and I didn't believe it. You know, they said, oh, these will disintegrate. And so I brought a couple home, kept them for 2 years. They look perfectly folded up. They look perfectly fine. I picked them up and they fell apart in my hands.
Huh.
Now, I don't know if that releases toxins in the air or what. I'm not sure how the biodegradable thing works, but also, you know, these peanuts that we use, they kind of look like styrofoam. Well, some of those are biodegradable, and they do dissolve in water. But again, I was wondering, what do they release to the atmosphere?
That's
Maybe.
a good point. Well, now that we start reading about all these microplastics, you know, you can't be sure, and it's better than nothing, right? I mean, I'm sure, you know, a plastic bag that has fallen apart is still better than a plastic bag that can, you know, kill a turtle, or, you know, wrap around a fish or something along those lines. But it's still not, you know, perfect, like you say.
Well, I used to take the peanuts things, you know, like to what Fed Express or what, you know, wherever they needed packing materials, because I didn't need all of them. And they used to take them. The last time I went, they say, are those biodegradable? And I said, well, yeah, they are. Well, we can't use those.
Oh,
I should
really?
have asked why. I should have said, well, why can't you? Because to me, that seems a better option than the ones that aren't biodegradable.
Maybe you use them once and they're not reliable a second time through or something. I don't know. I don't know what that would be. Surely it wouldn't biodegrade that quickly that you can't. But
Well,
maybe.
you know, I didn't believe that, but I put it in water and it disintegrated.
Yeah.
So, but they
All right.
wouldn't take it, and that surprised me.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you all are doing a lot. How do we? We're preaching to the choir here. How do we get more people involved in this this good news of reducing plastic?
Well, you know, with the food pantry, I guess we could ask the people to bring the sacks back. Some people have, I know that in the past they have, but very few do.
Yeah,
But maybe we could just ask them to return the bags.
that's a good point.
People need to see the danger of it. That's what it is. If people see, not everybody, but if majority of people see what that plastic does to the wildlife, these oceans, everything, it makes them stop and think. Whether they'll change, I don't know. But I know, since I read about what happens and how it gets around the necks and everything, I don't do any of those plastic 6-pack things anymore. Ever
Right.
since I saw the picture of it wrapped around, I think, a duck's neck.
Wow, isn't that interesting? Just that one picture really made that big a difference. That it really.
Picture speaks a lot of words, and I don't know if anybody remembers, but there was something on TV about all the plastic and how they would make it, put it together in the ocean, and you could walk on it.
Yeah. Well, here, what is it on page 46 and 7? There's plastic by the numbers. 120 billion plastic bottles made by Coca-Cola every year. 38 billion fragments of plastic found on the uninhabited Henderson Island in the South Pacific. 330 million tons of plastic produced every year. 12.7 million tons of plastic entering the ocean every year. 500,000 plastic particles per square meter in a river in Manchester, UK, thought to be the highest intensity ever discovered in one place. 450 years for a plastic bottle to break down in the ocean. 111 years since the first plastic was invented, so we got a ways to go. 90% of seabirds have plastic in their stomachs. And there's another one about how the percentage that we have in our stomachs. They did a test of human waste and how much plastic that we are ingesting. Yeah, here it is. 80% of plastic in the ocean originates on land. 53 years since the plastic bag was created, and one rubbish truck of plastic enters the ocean every minute.
Boy,
That's back to some bad news, but it is, like you say, Del, it is something that we can really kind of help people to see and help remind people and say, every time we say no to a plastic straw, every time we say no to another plastic coffee cup, then we're not only are we making a decision, but people see that and people notice that. And so it does make a difference. So let's see, what else? Anything else that the book reminded us, or kind of taught you new, surprised you about story of plastic?
I was surprised that plastic was in toothpaste,
Yeah. Toothpaste.
shampoo. I mean, those are kind of things do we really think when we're washing our hair, oh my gosh, I'm putting plastic in my hair? Or when we
Right.
brush our teeth, I've got plastic in my teeth. We don't think of those things.
Well, they always say to spit out that toothpaste and not to swallow it, but I didn't realize because it has so much plastic in it.
Uh-huh.
No, I'm with you. That surprised me as well. Oh yeah, coffee pods, even tea bags. Tea bags can have plastic in them, even though we've tried to compost some of that stuff. But it depends on if it's the right, some of them have plastic along with the I mean, it's not all compostable. Including they wrap the tea bag in a plastic bag inside of the box of tea. And so.
Now that I understood, it's wrapped. I mean, I know that tea bags are wrapped in plastic, but I didn't understand how the little bag itself got plastic in it.
Yeah, what did
I
that?
thought it was paper, but maybe it isn't paper.
Let's see. Unfortunately, in the general move to use plastic and everything, many tea companies started using plastic to seal the bags, leading to many of us polluting the environment unwittingly as we threw them in our food waste. So it sounds like they do some kind of vacuum sealing process to seal the, I mean, it's not a plastic bag, but then they use a plastic process. So there's microfibers in the tea bag itself. And so it's saying, which this is new to me, that you need to start checking to say, look for a plastic free label. If it doesn't have that plastic free label, there's a good chance you've got some kind of plastic in it. Milk, diapers. None of us have little ones at home anymore, but man, the number of or the amount of plastic that gets used in the nursery for diapers is a
Disposable diapers.
right. Yeah.
Wonder what they're made out of.
Oh, that's right. Oh, here it is. Here's the part about the clothes. What's the good news on the clothes? You know, there are things that you can do. You know, don't wash as often. You know, I think sometimes we think we wear something once, we've got to wash it. But you don't necessarily need to wash as often. Wash at lower temperatures, make sure you have a full load, use a lower spin speed. Let's see. Buy a washing machine with a microfiber filter. We don't buy washing machines very often, but maybe the next time you do. Buy fewer synthetic clothes. Buying fewer clothes, period, and fewer new clothes. You can buy recycled clothes. So there's some ways to be thoughtful about that. That's the one that really, again, really surprised me, how many synthetic fibers are in our clothes.
Are any of you familiar with this Guppy Friend washing bag? I'd never heard of that before.
Neither. What page is it again?
Pardon?
What
It's
page are you on?
about washing your clothes and stuff. But it's
Oh, yeah.
put your synthetic clothes inside a Guppy Friend washing bag before putting them in the wash. These mesh bags capture the microfibers inside for you, so dispose of more responsibly in the trash. But I've never heard of them. Oh, and then they said there's a product called Cora Ball designed to catch microfibers. I'm not familiar with either one of those.
Well, I'm wearing a shirt that I probably had for 40 years. Does that count? It still looks pretty good.
Good. You're buying fewer clothes.
So I'm reusing.
That's good. I'm still looking for your thing, Marcia, about
On page 87.
87. Okay. Oh, I wonder if my page numbers are different. I don't see that on mine. I remember reading about it.
In the bedroom. I thought we read the same book. I just read it months ago.
That this is it. This version.
I don't know. It's the one I got from the library months ago. But it's page 87 under giving up plastic in the bedroom.
Okay.
And it's right before that, buying a washing machine with a microfiber.
Oh yeah, I know. It looks like the page numbers are a little bit different. Because buying the microfiber is 91 on mine.
Okay.
I got a hardcover book and Marcia got the paperback or something.
Maybe something different. But yeah, I see. What does it say? Oh,
Well,
certain companies that you can that are trying to reduce the amount of microfibers. Patagonia. Of course, Patagonia is not very cheap.
okay, you know where you was talking about buying a washing machine with a microfiber filter? And then you were talking about wash your clothes smarter. It's
Yes.
right, it's a paragraph right in between those two
Okay.
in my book.
Huh.
Maybe they pulled it out because nobody knew what it was.
Or what if you got an updated version, like maybe yours is a newer edition, and therefore is there's more companies. It does say, do you remember the very first chapter? It says there's no way that you can write a book that's going to have all the newest updates. And so there was a good reminder. Maybe we'll make this kind of the last point. There is where is that? A website, I think they said to go to. Do you remember that? The website that said, go to this for the latest updates.
Yeah, I must not have copied that page. I don't see any reference to that.
That one. I'll end with his 5 steps for getting rid of plastic at the very end. Yeah, shoot, I don't see that on here now. What company it was? I thought it was pretty near the beginning about where to go to get the latest, right? Because like you said, as he puts this out, it's going to be out of date pretty quick. All right, well, let's do these 5 steps and then we'll wrap it up. So he says, go on a plastic-free shopping spree. Who would have thought that buying more things was a good idea? But this is Dale's point, right? Buy a nice water bottle, a reusable coffee cup, a tote bag, or even just a backpack for your shopping, a lunchbox, and some kitchen storage containers. Go on a plastic-free purge. That's kind of what we've been talking about. In your bathroom, in your bedroom, in your cupboards, all those places. Do some plastic-free preaching. Here's Chuck and his kind of evangelism of reducing plastic. Some of the ways that we can say some good news about the calling that we have as Christians. That's the language to use. Spread the good news that a plastic-free life is easier than they think, and every little bit helps. Number 4, make some plastic-free plans. Do some kind of thoughtful planning ahead. That's the thing is Dale made this point earlier. It's so convenient. So you really almost have to think ahead to say, all right, instead of just react and buy and purchase and last second, can we think ahead to do some plastic-free kind of preparation? And then start your own plastic-free campaign. And that's some of the things that we talk about. What about business owners? What about kind of municipal organizations, institutions? How can we be thoughtful about asking businesses to change their ways? So a lot in there. Anybody have any final words before we wrap it up?
I think giving up plastics, I think it's going to have to be everybody do something.
Right.
A slow process, it's kind of like everything else. You just have to show by example and do your little bit for the world. And that's what I do. I use my own coffee cup, my own water, my own containers for the grocery store. I try to buy as little plastic. I don't buy water. I don't buy soda that has I don't buy soda, but I don't buy anything with the plastic rings around it. That's my little bit to do for the environment.
Good. That's good. Yeah, I think you're right. And that's what he says in here, right? Every little bit helps. And you're doing great things, Dale. There's somebody I know that I absolutely trust and feel like it's probably more of a environmentalist than anybody else I know. And that's the thing that she says she struggles with the most is single-use plastics. That she's been able to get so much stuff out of her life and so much change, but that single-use plastic thing is just so tough. And so it's a challenge. So you're right, Dale. Every little bit helps.
Yeah, I don't use like plastic containers. I use glass, but I still use the baggies because I freeze in those. I freeze foods. but I've slowly changed, my water, my pets dishes are steel, stainless, they're not plastic. I don't use and in fact, plastic is very dangerous for animals. Yeah, so they don't have anything plastic that they eat out
Huh?
of. So
Yeah, we've started going to those, and I don't know if they're any better, but the silicone storage, they're nice because you can actually microwave in them, and they don't leach like you microwave in plastic, it'll leach into the food, but the silicone, and you can freeze them, and you can just kind of go straight from one to the other, and it minimizes waste. So, well, I don't know. I'll have to go back and read them now to see how much microfibers it releases every time I pull it out. But every little bit helps. Everybody is doing their part. So, all right. Well, thank you all. Good conversation, good words, and yeah, we'll do this again next month. Marilee is going to be our leader for a conversation about science and climate and kind of the way, kind of public health and the way we talk about all of that. So anyway, that's next month, and so we'll plan on participating then and there. So thank you all very much, and we'll see you next time.
We meet on the 18th, right?
I believe so.
And is it going to be at 6:30 or?
Yes, 6:30 on the 18th. Yes, that is where it's early. It's not our fourth Thursday because that is Thanksgiving. So we'll do it on the third Thursday this time. So thank you all.